Yo, 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 what's good, people? It's your boy Icarus Gray here for another installment of Gray Area Anime. And today, I'm going to talk sports animes. Now, I have an affinity for sports animes. I've watched a lot of them, but I've watched a lot of anime. Sports animes make almost everything you could possibly watch in the sports realm fun, even things that you necessarily wouldn't find interesting, like golf, for instance. Um, I've only been interested in golf in terms of like Tiger Woods or something like that. But recently, the guy who made one of the animes that I'm going to talk about today, in iShow 21, has made a golf manga entitled Robot X Laser Beam, which takes this guy who is very stoic. He may be a little autistic in terms of the way he just doesn't really understand or receive emotions in the same way that other people do. He's just kind of moving through the motions. He'll remind you of Sheldon from Big Bang Theory or something like that. And it's just a really interesting read about golf and teammates. And they always make it a grandiose visual thing, something that's interesting to watch. And it teaches you the game thoroughly. Like it teaches you so many different intricate levels of it. So that's one of the things that I'm kind of going to talk about and mention today. Now, the first one I want to get into that I wanted to talk about is iShield 21, which is written by Richiro Inagaki. Like I said, he also did the Robot X Laser Beam. But this is football. And this is about a kid named Sena Kobayakawa. And if I mess up names, I apologize. It's hard for me to speak Japanese, obviously, or at least right now. But anyway, I digress. So it's about football. So it's about this kid who pretty much just like runs all the time. Like he gets picked on and bullied, so he does like a lot of running. And in running all the time, he ends up being great as a running back because he's always running. So he's always trying to like avoid people and do tasks and things that bullies and errands and stuff that people have made him do very well. So what happens is there's a struggling football team at this school. Like they don't even have enough players to make a full roster. But there's these three players that are senior, or two players that are seniors that are trying to keep the club going. And they kind of there's the quarterback and one of their center. And they find him and they get him to join the club, and hijinks ensues. There's a lot of camaraderie and growth involved in iShield 21 that it gives you that feel of football. It makes it anime, of course. So there's a lot of there's these power-ups and things that kind of happen that are not like actual power-ups. They have real world applications for the most part, but visually, like I said, it's always going to be fantastic or crazy in that way. And it just builds this sense of grandeur in itself in this football world. It makes the rivalries that we see on a daily basis in American football come a little bit more to life in a very animated way. And it's one of my favorites. I enjoyed reading it and watching it. It goes at a great pace. There's triumphs and a lot of failures in ways that football happens. Like you don't win all the time. Like no matter how hard you try, sometimes you don't win. And when you do win, you learn from it and kind of keep going. So iShield 21 is the football anime that I watched that is one of my favorites. So check that one out. I believe it is on Crunchyroll, so you should be able to watch that there. It's very interesting. It's not very long, and the anime ends a good portion before the manga does. But the manga kind of wraps everything up in a nice way. Just adds another dimension to it that makes you want even more of it, but you also understand the conclusion of it. And also gives you a look into the way clubs and football and things of that nature work in Japanese culture, which is always different because a lot of the mangas and animes and sports manga, they always end up starting like in the last 2 to 3 years before they graduate, before they're about to go on to university or go on to different schools. And there's not as much emphasis on a lot of different sports like football or basketball. So by the time you get done in high school, you're kind of done. There's no kind of going to college and keeping it going. And that's normally the stipulation. The stipulation starts, there's a senior that's involved somewhere in majority of these sports manga. There's a freshman or a sophomore that's coming in, and this is the final year that they'll be able to go to whatever tournament or whatever the case may be. And the freshman is the last hope. And either they go to a tournament, they lose, and the senior has to like retire because for the second half of the year, they got to start preparing for exams or whatever. And so like the freshman is now feeling like he has to go the extra mile and kind of get past the obstacles that their senpai was not able to do. So that's pretty much the general trope of majority of sports anime. There's always somewhere going to be a senior who this is his last year. We're going to do it for him. He, tried his best and has been trying to keep things together. But it's what gets you in. It's relatable in the sense that we do have that. You have a lot of situations where you're getting on a team. It's the same, on senior day, I'm sure in a lot of different high schools around America, it's the same kind of feeling. So that's kind of what they try to capitalize on. So that way you're drawn in and have something that you have a reference for. So moving on to baseball, one of my favorites is Ace No Diamond, or Diamond No Ace, excuse me. And this one is, I read the manga majority of the time. So it's kind of about this young guy who wants to be a pitcher. And baseball is a little bit bigger in Japan. But he wants to be a pitcher. And of course, he goes to this great team. But before he gets to the great team, he has to have this tryout. And at the tryout, because he's trying to get in school, he loves the game of baseball. And let me give me 1 second. I'm going to try and find his name, which is always difficult because these names are hard to keep up with how many of these things that I read. And of course I can't find it. But anyway, I'll get back to that and try not to bog you down with trying to find all the extra details. But just give you a bigger synopsis so that way when you go and watch it, you'll kind of have a good understanding. So what happens is he's playing baseball for this team and he's really excited about it. And they're horrible. Everybody's horrible. And this is when he's in junior high. But he loves it and he just keeps playing with a smile. And eventually, when they lose their last game and he's sad that he doesn't get to play baseball anymore, at least not with them, it's time for him to figure out how to go to high school. So there are scouts that were at the game and they saw something kind of in him about how he was playing. And he goes to do a tryout. And at the tryout, there's this catcher. And, pitchers and catchers have a special relationship. If your pitcher knows, or if your catcher knows, kind of what pitch you should kind of see, they have different perspectives. They work together in tandem. A great catcher makes an even better pitcher. A great pitcher makes an even better catcher most times. So he essentially throws the catcher guides him in a way that he's never been guided before because he's never played with somebody of that caliber. Therefore, it makes him excited and adrenaline is rushing and has a lot of drive to kind of want to be better and so this is what it feels like to play baseball at an elite level. And so that's kind of where it starts. And then from there, it's him trying to become a starter and make his way on the team. And of course, there's always sometimes also a prodigy somewhere in sports anime. And so he comes against the prodigy who he's a rival with now in trying to get started or trying to be a starter. And they're both pitchers. They both have their flaws and things. And again, they make it so in depth. So they bring in the fact that, certain pitchers will get tired because a high pitch count of like 100 or 90 or 100 or 90 or 70 does a lot to the body, and they employ that with their writing and with the way that they present it to you. So that way it doesn't seem so extremely far-fetched. Again, it's going to be animated. It's going to be kind of over the top. People are going to have special moves that cannot happen in real life, or at least not in the way that they do them in real life. But again, still has some relatable context. So it kind of goes on from there. Of course, they're entering in tournaments. There are many different teams with many different styles, and each of these styles breaks down a specific aspect of something that is in the real world. That you can see these defensive teams or these offensive teams or these well-balanced teams or these, dirty teams or whatever the case may be. They're all there, and it's very enjoyable that. So Domino Ace is baseball, one that I enjoy. Think you should definitely check it out. I think we'll go on to now tennis. Yeah, I know. Tennis, right? Who would have thought? But The Prince of Tennis, which was written and illustrated by Takeshi Konomi, is simply amazing. Like, I was already like kind of halfway interested in blah 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 in tennis. Of course, we all root for Serena and Venus, but when I stumbled across this particular anime, it's because I've always had a love for Mario Tennis, and I know this is kind of random, but if you ever play Mario Tennis, like the original one that was kind of on Game Boy Advance, it has an anime type feel to it. And so when I played that, it kind of made me, want to watch something or find something. And like I said, I stumbled across this. And it's behind a prodigy, Ryoma Echizen. And this kid is amazing. Like, he just plays tennis all the time. His father was an Olympic tennis player, which you don't really find out till later. So small spoiler alert, but it doesn't really affect much in the story, other than the fact that it kind of shows his drive to like be his dad and his drive to kind of like just be the best. And he is arrogant as all get out because he's that good. And so it centers around him going to the school and ending up being their star player as a freshman, which is another trope that they do. The freshman can either have never played the sport before and they're trying to learn it and they just have an adapt potential for it, or they end up being prodigies. And this is one of those cases where the story just kind of goes on. Like, everybody has different specialties and things they're good at. Doubles comes into play a lot, or not a lot, but doubles will come into play. So different players kind of playing together. Singles comes in, different types of matches, extended matches. You learn all of the rules of what the lines are and stuff like that. So it kind of broadens itself and opens itself to a lot of different things in Prince of Tennis. But Ryoma is a really cool character. And so are all of his teammates. You have his teammates that are even better than him. And that's amazing when they do that, to have a prodigy and have somebody who is also on their level in a way that they're a lion. And it's like a cub kind of like tugging at the dad's ear. And you see the fact that at any moment I can shut you down. But you also know, as a young person or as somebody that's on the other side, that you kind of want to get over that and kind of want to break the hump. But anyway, Prince of Tennis is amazing. You really should check that out. I'm going to do in-depth videos on a lot of these different sports animes to break them down even further, to give you more info on the character. But there are so many that I kind of just want to go through a couple more to just give you just the basis of kind of how they start. Like I said, with him, it was a thing that he had been over in America playing tennis for a little bit, and then he kind of came over, joins this team of one of the legendary schools. And they're not even too legendary, but they're kind of like middle of the road. They've won before, but just been kind of close, but not quite there. But anyway, excuse me, I had to refocus on me. But Prince of Tennis is another amazing one. Let's go on to the next one, see what I have here. No, I'm going to save that one for last. This next one is a new one that I wanted to talk to you guys about, which is more along the line of the freshman who does not know how to play his sport very well. And that is All Out. And All Out is about rugby. Now, I would not have thought that rugby was something that I would find interesting. Only because I don't know much about it other than it's considered to be the real version of football, however you want to put that. But All Out, like I said, starts with, let me get down here to these characters. Kenji Gion is the main character. He's short. Has never played rugby in his life, and it's just kind of like one of those things where he's like, Napoleon complex. Like, no one, don't call me Chibi, don't call me Shorty or whatever. And he's at the school and he's just fair to middling, doesn't really care about anything. It's kind of stupid and just gung-ho. Reminds me a little bit of Luffy from One Piece, but not too much. Like, he has the same kind of ideas, but he's just a silly gung-ho individual. And so what happens, as I've said before, you get to the school. This is a team that has not been relevant for much anything. A lot of the people who were on the team didn't really care about rugby. There were 3 that did, and of course they were in their freshman year when they cared, and now they're seniors and trying not to, in their last year in a situation where they can't enjoy the sport that they love. So there's this guy, Shumiaki, we're gonna call him Iwashimizu. That's his name, but it's difficult for me to say again. But anyway. He's a really tall, great rugby player, but he's timid. He is timid as all get out, which juxtapose, an odd couple kind of relationship, which is another trope that they add that adds a little levity and relatability, hot and cold, sweet, salty kind of characters that balance each other out. So he balances out this tall, so incredibly timid, strong rugby player who doesn't really want to play, who has had some troubles in his life, who he just runs into. And they kind of just go from there. Like, his general charisma and way of being kind of pulls everybody in. And so in this one, like, they don't have much of anything. Like, they don't have money for nothing. The sponsor for their team, and all their team has sponsors the same way that in high school, you have a coach, and then you have the person that supervises, the teacher that supervises and goes on trips with you, that has to kind of monitor everything in a good way. Majority of the time here, you'll kind of like see coaches. It's kind of like when the coaches teach classes and stuff like that. So it's kind of like the mix there. So with this one, and it's interesting because I feel like All Out is more fan service for women. It's whole lot of fan service. Like, there's no hints of relationships and stuff like that. And some of these, like, they're not coming for you for a relationship. There might be one-sided love and stuff like that from fans or something like that, or someone who has known this person forever, but he's never gonna stop playing the sport to fall in love or whatever. Another thing to kind of expect from sports anime. But so you have that. Like I said, he's a really short guy, Napoleon complex, tall guy, timid, the same seniors that are there. And what makes it different is the way it's drawn, the way it kind of goes about it. It feels like they really are at the bottom trying to climb their way up to the top. And you kind of just immerse yourself in that world. Now we're going to go over to soccer. And this one I just started, it just started this year watching. It is, give me a second, I'm gonna get down to these characters. The main character is Squishy Tsukamoto. And he is a clumsy, doesn't really know how to play soccer at all kid. Like I said, this is normally how they do it. And I guess, as you can see by now, the commonalities of the things that I like. I love you never tried it before and you kind of just try it, you love it, and you get good at it. So he goes one day and has this guy who needs an extra person to play soccer. He ends up playing, ends up kind of loving it, ends up joining the team and finds something and finds a place where he belongs. His mom is paraplegic, and a teacher. And I only mention that to say that there's these endearing factors of he didn't have much opportunities in his mind to kind of go and do other things. And so he kind of kept his eyes focused, kind of kept his head down, another timid kind of character. But so far, the relationships that they've shown, like there's funny moments, but you see everybody grinding to be better. You see the anguish of seniors who lose their starting job because, you know, the new guy, the new prodigy or the new freshman is a little bit better than them. And Days gives that feeling off very well of brotherly, you know, bonding. And it just shows Shocker in that way. Like, it doesn't come here saying like, all right, it didn't go like 10-0. Like, no, it's still soccer. So it might be 2-0. There's still intensity there. And I keep using these words because that's the theme with sports animes is intensity. It builds that same tension of watching the NBA finals and there's 2 minutes left and it's tied. They are very good at building that. They're very good at building despair in the sense like, oh no, we're down 30. Like, how are we going to come back? We only have this much time. Well, this has to go right. This has to go right. They set all of this up for you in a very eloquent way that I think is amazing. So Tsukushi Tsukamoto is a character for that. Days, again, this is another one I'm going to break down in more detail for you, but I'm just showing you that there are a million sports animes for you to check out. Now, the next one, the next to last one that I'm going to mention is what I like to call the veteran of the group. And the veteran of the group for this is Hajime no Ippo, which is about boxing. And Ippo is the main character. And this has been going on since 2000. So in 2000, it has been going on. And when I tell you it like feels like Rocky. It feels like Rocky just extended and continues to grow. You know, this guy like learns so many different techniques. Like, he's gotten older and tried to become a heavyweight. They introduce all these new characters. Like, they create a full boxing world that you get invested in, that you want to watch, that lets you understand the triumphs, the pitfalls, the messed up parts about boxing. Like, it does not hold its punches, for lack of a better pun there. It goes full in, or all the way in. And it is like, I believe the manga, if I'm not mistaken, is like over 1,000 chapters at this point. Now, this wouldn't be one that I would say like go start with this, but this will be one that you could get into and kind of see the progression through the years, see the changes in the character, and see why it's one of the longest running animes, along with Detective Conan and stuff like that. It's one of the most treasured animes and mangas that are there because it's still something that touches a lot of people, even after, 17 years thus far. So you should really go check that one out. Like I said, I'm going to break a lot of these down, but that's the boxing one. And I hope that I kind of got you a little hype with just a little snippet of it. Now, to end with, we're going to end with what the thumbnail is, which is Kuroko, no basket. I'm a basketball fan, therefore I have to end on basketball. This one is amazing. Everybody is pretty good. There isn't anybody that's bad, because no one likes to watch bad basketball. But the thing is the specialties of a lot of the different players. So the main character, Kuroko, is a really quiet guy. Like, he just is stoic. He's you'll see the little guy with the kind of turquoise blue hair. And what's funny about him is you don't really know he's there. He's one of those people. He doesn't really have anything that stands out about him, and they're sitting up there kind of wondering Well, what's so good about him? And he's kind of like Steve Nash in terms of the way that he plays. He passes extremely well, and he used to play with, I think they call him the Generation of Miracles, is what they call him. So it's like 5 of the guys who are all great at a lot of different things. It makes the crossovers look amazing. They give so many shout outs to the cultural references here, like in Iverson, and just the way we love shoe culture, the different types of players. They shout out all kinds of old school players and stuff like that. So you'll have a player who's a dead-eye shooter who can shoot like Steph Curry, and this is before Steph Curry really started popping the way he popping. So he comes across like the half court line and he can shoot 3. You have a guy that can dunk. You have a guy that can kind of like mimic everybody's moves that he watches. You have the guy who sees the whole floor with his amazing court vision and is able to kind of break everything down and kind of see things like Kawhi Leonard or somebody like that might see. So you have so many different characters that you, if you're a sports fan, in every one of these mangas, you have somebody that you can directly relate to. And a lot of the time, they probably are based off of someone that we've watched or someone that we enjoy. Hence the reason why I love majority of sports animes. I'll pretty much watch all of them. There's another sports anime, and another soccer one that's kind of about this germaphobe guy who doesn't want to be touched, which it's crazy because he's playing soccer and getting dirty, but he just instantly just like goes and cleans, and it's funny. There's ping pong. There's table tennis is ping pong, but there's table tennis. There's martial arts, and there were a couple that I left off of here that, like I said, that I wasn't really sure about. The Strongest Disciple is one, and it's kind of a martial arts one, but a lot of things kind of happen outside of the martial arts. Like they don't do tournaments and stuff. Early Dragon Ball is not really a sports anime, but when they go to the tournaments, it gives you that kind of feel. I'm trying to think, like there's literally everything. There's fishing. Yu-Gi-Oh might count as a sports anime, given the fact that it's a card game that people engage in and actively compete in. There's a Quiz Bowl anime, which again is another sport and something that I enjoy watching. That has just started. Again, another one of the ones that I'm going to break down for you guys because it's amazing to watch. But so in general, here's the summation of sports animes. So you got the protagonist who is either really good or fresh off the boat to do this. And that sounded kind of weird. But anyway, new to this. So you have rivals, brotherly relationships. You always have this school that is completely and utterly dominating, like Little Rock Central High when I went there. You know, something like that. Back state champions. You have this monster of a team who at every position has monsters, as they normally call them, just people who are excellent at what they do, have spent their entire lives playing. And then you got the scrappy underdog team. So if you're somebody who goes for underdogs, who roots for underdogs, sports animes is where you should be, because there's going to be a lot of them there and you're going to enjoy these. So what I want you to do is hit the subscribe button, check the playlist, because it's going to have all the other videos of things that I told you should watch and or read. So that way you can kind of get more in-depth analysis and just more breakdowns on the plot and the story and stuff like that. I hope that I've given you enough of information on some of these to kind of get you started. Like I said, we're going to go back and talk more about them later. And I'll break each one down. Leave which one down in the comments from the ones like what your favorite sport is. And if I haven't spoken about it, I'm sure I can find one and I'll be able to break that down for you too. Anyway, it's your guy, Icarus Gray. This has been Gray Area Anime. And I'll see you guys on the next go around. Deuces.